This is a Kirkendall Barrett presentation, darling.
You can touch it if you want.
Ladies, if you want to meet a man, check your storage closet.
Come on, Kendall. Take off your shirt and go camera shopping at Best Buy.
Good shirtless, not bad shirtless.
Yeah.
Well, it was gratuitous.
Yeah, it was.
I like a good grizzled man sometimes.
A lifetime of Hallmark.
Well, hello, everybody. It is your favorite day of the week. It is time for another episode of A Lifetime of Hallmark, where we talk about your favorite movies on both Lifetime and the Hallmark Channel and try to make sense of them. I am Les Kirkendall Barrett. Hello, Jason Bowers.
Hello, Les Kirkendall Barrett.
And hello, Kurt Fitzpatrick.
Hello, Les Kirkendall Barrett, and hello, Jason Bowers. And hello to the man who made me watch the Sisterhood of the Yaha. What's this movie called again? It's called the Yaha, whatever it was.
Divine Sisterhood of the
Divine Sisterhood of the Yayas.
The Divine Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants?
No. What was it called again? I can't just talking about it.
The Divine Secrets of the Yaya Sisterhood.
That's what I was forced to watch. Yes, I've been trying to get it in my brain. I watched this. I watched it for his podcast, the Shelf Shedding Movie Show, all the way from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. Hey, this is like the Ed Sullivan Show now. Jason Dubray.
Woo!
Hi, Jason.
The contemporary
Very
record.
good show. Very good show.
Hi, Jason.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for having me on. I know we've been trying to set this up for a while. Kurt's been on my show a lot. I think the most or the second most of any guest here. And so I'm happy to pay him back here and come on as a guest for your show. And I have to say, the three of you are really heroes.
Why is that?
What you do every week for the entertainment of the listeners, I mean, it is one of the most heroic things I've ever heard of, because these are not easy movies that you watch. So.
That is true.
Thank you. And
Thank
Jason, you are my hero. Anybody who can make Kurt Fitzpatrick watch the Yaya Sisterhood is a hero in my eyes. And can you please make him watch the Traveling Pants, Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants Part 2? Because there is a sequel.
Part 2. All right.
Oh boy.
I have to get my hands on it. So the premise of my show is we review 6 movies, and at the end, my guest and I give points, and the one that has the lowest has to leave my movie collection. So I don't own either of the Traveling Pants movies, oddly enough. But if I can get my hands on the second one, then Kurt, that's your show.
Oh no. But as long as I don't have to watch like Sex and the City Part 2, I go into hiding.
And let's put it like Now and Then from the mid '90s.
Oh,
put that one in.
Is that the Rosie O'Donnell and Christina Ricci's like a young Rosie in that movie? Gabby Hoffman's in that. Demi Moore. Yeah.
That movie, when I first moved to New York, I was trying to get myself into the film industry. I hadn't been there that long, and I got a call to work on that movie.
To do what?
As a production assistant.
Okay.
Oh.
And I was all excited. And we just needed somebody. We just happened to come across your resume. Don't know who you are. So I was all excited. I was telling people, I'm working on this movie with Melanie Griffith. And then they called me later on that night and said, oh, never mind.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I didn't get to work.
That's welcome to the film business right there.
Yeah.
That's awful. That's a sad story.
Well, that movie was brought up, so that's the story that came into my head.
Was it last episode? I don't know if you record them in order. I listened to the last one where you were close to being Mekhi Phifer or something.
Oh no!
Yeah,
Kurt auditioned for the Mekhi Phifer role in 8 Mile.
Yeah, I can't believe I didn't know that, because I've had you on talking about meeting Paul Newman and him yelling at you at a theater 10 years ago or something, and a bunch of different stories, but I didn't know that one. So maybe I'll have you review 8 Mile with me.
Yeah, I could do that. 8 Mile's good.
You tell me what you would have done with that character that would have been different.
Something. I mean, it was, well, like I said, it was originally going to be something would have happened. It definitely would have been different. What, the Paul Newman thing? I never said that. That was
No, I never heard that story.
No.
So this was like years ago. Like obviously he passed away some years ago. Maybe 20 years ago. I went with a friend of mine and I we're in this acting class. We're taking an acting class at HB Studios, and we got tickets to see this Broadway show. It was Arthur Miller's After the Fall. Does that sound right? That's one of his shows. No, The Price. It was a show he did called The Price. Yeah. So we go to see this Broadway show, and unexpectedly, it's a star-studded event. Like Meryl Streep is there, and Ethan Hawke is there, and we had no idea all these people were going to be there. And Paul Newman was there. And Paul Newman, what he would do is he would position himself around the theater so that any kind of busy place, you would see Paul Newman. So I would walk up the steps, there's Paul Newman, go to the men's room, Paul Newman's hanging outside the men's room, walk around the corner, there's Paul Newman. So like wherever I went, Paul Newman is just kind of standing there positioning himself so people could see him. Was he actually deliberately doing that, or is that just the comedic telling of the story is that he was everywhere you went? He absolutely was doing this. He wanted to be seen. Okay. Because it was ridiculous. Honestly, I walked up the stairs and there's Paul Newman standing there. He's like a statue. So at one point, during the intermission, he positions himself outside the restroom. So there's a line for the restroom so everybody walking by could see Paul Newman. And he's looking at this, he's looking at the playbill, but he's obviously not reading it. So I walked up to him and I said, Mr. Newman, and he's like, what? I'm like, Mr. Newman, I was wondering if you had any advice for a young actor. And he just looks at me and he goes, good God, no.
I don't think that's yelling at you. I think that's sort of a playful response.
We determined when I was on the Shelf Shedding movie show, we determined that, but didn't we say that Paul Newman really didn't feel like he had a right to give anybody advice? That's probably why he said that.
He was hard on himself. Yeah, I mean, he was trying not to be a movie star. I mean, I think he was always known as this good-looking movie star. He was trying to overcome that, and he had difficulty. I mean, I saw him interviewed for the Actors Studio. He was just criticizing all of his old performances. I think the Verdict, which we reviewed on the show, that's when he said he was happy with that performance. But I don't think he was happy with anything before that. So oddly enough.
Oh, gee, life was so rough for him. I'm so hot. I'm so good looking. My salad dressing is amazing.
Well, whenever I see the spaghetti jars, it's always like he's scolding me from the grocery store aisle. Good God, no.
From the grave.
What's some salsa?
What's the there's that slightly racist one of the Newman brand where he's wearing like some sort of a poncho. What is that?
Oh yeah, it's a salsa.
Oh, the salsa. The Paul Newman. Yeah.
I mean, it's as offensive as when Trader Joe's used to call their ethnic stuff. They would be like Trader Jose's, Trader Giuseppe's, and they got away from that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're in a different time now, so yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Well, anyway, Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We have so much to talk about. We could talk about screeners because remember, Jason is our audience member who enjoys when we talk about union stuff. We talk about SAG-AFTRA stuff.
I do. I'm a nerd for that. I wish I had to vote for the Screen Actors Guild Awards, but.
Well, now I think the screeners are live for us to view digitally. I believe they are live now.
Yes, it's Actor Christmas.
I just saw, was it Brian Tyree Henry? I saw him in Causeway the other night.
I heard
not
it's
nominated
fantastic.
for the SAG Award. He's fantastic. I don't know if the Academy are gonna pick up on that performance, but that was a recent one I saw that was just outstanding. But I don't know. I was that's the one with Jennifer Lawrence. She comes back as a wounded veteran from Afghanistan.
Wait, what?
I haven't heard
big
that
comeback for her, but yeah, he steals the movie pretty much. But did I tell you my theory with the nominations this year? There was pretty Netflix heavy, and isn't it Netflix YouTube channel is the only one broadcasting the awards this year? So just wondered if there was some they were just
I don't think Netflix broadcasting an awards.
Yeah, no, Netflix has the rights to the SAG Awards now. This year they're showing them on their YouTube channel, and next year they'll actually be on Netflix.
Oh.
Did you ever think you'd see the day when you'd be watching the Golden Globes on YouTube?
Well, I mean, if you think back to when we were growing up, YouTube didn't exist, so we wouldn't have even considered that it would be anywhere but on regular TV.
Well, but I'm used to watching, at my astrology videos, soap opera updates, Bravo, Real Housewives updates, and now there's like the Golden Globes.
At the end of the day, though, it's just a content delivery system. It's no different than getting it over a signal over the air on a TV box.
So I can watch. I could watch the update of Jen Shaw from the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, and then go on to A-list actors.
Yeah,
that crap is on our TV. My brother was here last week, and he put on like Peacock, and honestly, that Real Housewives, it just ran and ran and ran because I don't really watch what's on. I don't really watch what's on TV. So my mom just kind of sat there. She watched as well. It was on for like 12 hours, like 8 hours. Because I'm not going to change the channel. To me, the most of what's the TV is white noise because I'm watching my own stuff and I'm reading and doing things. But
okay, so Kurt, what did you learn? What did you learn with the Real Housewives?
There was another show where it was like a gay wedding going on. Is that like a Real Housewives show or is that something else? And they're planning the wedding.
Was it Bridezillas? Was it Married at First Sight? Was it?
It was something.
Well, Married at First Sight, that's a Lifetime show, right?
It was shot like that.
Pardon?
I'm sorry, what was that?
I said Married at First Sight's a Lifetime show, I think. So I don't think it would have been that.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Married at First Sight is very good. I am a Married at First Sight watcher. but yeah, it's last week I was in oh my god, speaking of yelled at, I got kind of yelled at last week when I was in Florida.
Oh, is this like the backpack incident at the museum?
No, it was not.
Okay.
So I was there in Florida doing the Orlando mini winter fringe festival, which actually was great, and I had a great time doing it, and my show did very well. But one day, a bunch of the artists went out for breakfast, and so I was catching up with people, and I was actually talking about Kurt Fitzpatrick because your name came up, and I was like, "Oh, he's the co-host on my podcast."
You got yelled at,
and someone yelled at me like, "Oh, gee, why don't you brag about having a podcast?" And I'm like,
"Wow."
Was it the ghost of Paul Newman?
Right?
Is that somebody I know who did that?
You probably do. I'll tell you later. I'll tell you after we record.
That is the most bizarre thing to get upset about. Like,
so what did you say?
Well, and at first I thought they were joking, and I was like, "Oh my god, they're serious." And I'm like, it's not like we're raking in millions of bucks in, the podcast that I do from our guest room. It's like.
Well, also, like, you could literally start a podcast right there in that moment.
Right.
There's literally no barrier to entry other than having internet.
You too, for $14 a month, you too can have a podcast.
You don't even need to spend that.
You lose money, have a podcast, yes.
Right.
Get yourself a ham radio.
So yeah, I was just like
that to the AM airwaves. Yeah, that's great. I love that. I'd like to know more details. We can't talk about. I don't know who it was, but I can only imagine.
I'll tell you who later. But yeah, I was like, geez,
I love stuff like that. Because it's like you just can't please some people.
Right.
That's next week's guest, right?
Right.
Oh, I'd love to.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Right. It's like, heaven forbid, like, he probably would have murdered me if I told him that I shot a TV pilot over the summer. I probably would have been like, you'd be talking about ghosts.
So this was a he?
Yes. And I'll leave it at that.
We're narrowing it down. Okay.
I'll leave it at that. Because you saw the picture, so you've got a wide variety of people to choose from. It's basically like the glass onion of Fringe, because there was like quite a few people there.
Were any of them wearing fabulous outfits that should be written about on dailymail.com.uk?
Oh, like Kate Hudson's outfits,
or like, you know, someone that we talk about every week on the show.
I think it's a segue.
Oh, well,
Nice.
you know, you mean like Black China? Is there any Black China news?
Doing a piece of China.
China.
I'm talking China.
The Black China Report. Here's Kurt Fitzpatrick.
I'm embarrassed doing it. You know, it's because he's going to lose respect for me. But that's okay. Here we go. This is the Black China news. I couldn't find any recent news, so I have to do a throwback here. This is an evergreen story.
Okay.
This was actually from April of last year. The headline is Black China commands courtroom attention in pristine white suit and metallic heels for Kardashian-Jenner trial. This is from Yahoo News. Black China is currently spending her days in Los Angeles Superior Court with the Kardashian-Jenners as a result of her $100 million defamation lawsuit against the famous family. While the model and socialite is no doubt dealing with a very tense trial, she's doing it so in impeccable style. This is a high-profile trial, after all. The walk to the courthouse might be a red carpet, paparazzi included. Okay. Yesterday, Blac Chyna arrived in the LA courthouse wearing an all-white suit and carrying a contrasting black bag. The suit blazer was tailored to the star's frame with bold shoulder pads, adding a structured touch to the jacket. Her matching white trousers featured a wide flowing cut, which draped gorgeously down her legs as she walked into the trial. According to her stylist, Holly Larry, the suit is a custom Alexandra Vauthier number with Sergio Rossi heels, though the drape of the star's trousers makes it difficult to decipher the exact shoe style. The shoe, however, featured a thin, high stiletto heel and appears to be silver metallic in color. For makeup, the star went full glam with a sultry eye look and a nude pout. She wore her bleached hair and finger waves, adding to the already sleek look. For jewelry, the star wore minimal diamond stud earrings, otherwise remaining jewelry free. And then it says Blac Chyna wore the look to the second day of court proceedings for her defamation lawsuit against the Keeping Up with the Kardashian stars. The lawsuit, which was filed in 2017, alleges that the Fame family stunted her reality TV career, causing her E! Show with ex-Rob Kardashian, who is the father of her daughter Dream, to be canceled after one season. The Kardashian-Jenners claimed the show, titled Rob and Chyna, couldn't have continued due to the tumultuous breakup of the couple's relationship. The famous family also alleges the show was never renewed for a second season regardless. The trial is expected to last for 10 days. Of course, this is from a year ago, but I think it's an evergreen story.
I like this only because it sounded like the kind of copy that's read at a fashion show. It was way more specific than the Blac Chyna outfit descriptions normally are.
Yeah.
They made good use of their words in this, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Down to finger
See if I can find the author's name. Let's see.
And
okay.
Who was it?
I was going to give the author some credit. It's that article was written by Katie Dupier.
Oh, good job, Katie.
Katie's got a future as a fashion writer for sure.
Yeah.
Very good. Much better than a lot of the other articles we read, where it just seems to be filler.
And we
you said last week's was like repeated phrases. You were thinking it was paid by the word type of thing, or
yeah, I think they are. Yeah,
type of thing.
Well, a lot of times they have like an Instagram post that there isn't much more to say other than Blac Chyna posted to Instagram, so they need to fill out the story.
Yeah.
Right.
And then they go through old stuff we already know.
And then they throw in, and she chased Rob Kardashian with a car around the room and tried to hit him and strangled him with, a phone cord. Well, actually, it started as a phone cord, and then didn't it grow to Well,
it was a phone cord, and then there was like a small metal pole, which then became a 6-foot metal pole, which then became it kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Right.
You're lucky Blac Chyna wasn't sitting at that Orlando breakfast table. Oh, you with that OnlyFans page, aren't you something special?
Right.
Jason, do you follow Blac Chyna news?
Do I follow it?
Yeah, do you follow the Blac Chyna news?
No, other than when I listen to your show.
We are your Black China news source.
Yes, you are my primary source. How did the focus on Black China creep into this show?
Kurt, would you?
I don't have an answer to that because I don't remember when this originated.
About 2 years ago, it was right around the time when all of the college admissions scandal stuff was happening, and we were talking about Lori Loughlin, and Les, I think, just made a very casual reference to Black China. And I had heard of her, but didn't really know who she was. Kurt had never even heard of her. And so then we started going down a Google rabbit hole of finding out information about Black China. So then Kurt just started bringing news, and then we just turned it into a weekly feature.
And I think it was Kurt thought I was making the name up, too. And I was like, no, it's a person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no.
so they make me do an update. Oh, by the way, this is difficult because there's two people on the show with the same name now. So Jason Dubray, you heard our episode where I did the rap song, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I'm very proud of that.
Really good.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's what led into the 8 Mile conversation.
Yeah. Not that I'm fishing for compliments.
Well, also, I would like to apologize because I was giving you crap, Kurt, about not thinking that song was a contemporary Nicki Minaj song, and it's actually a current song. So I stand corrected, and I apologize. I was wrong.
Oh, that's okay.
It's interesting. Kurt and I first met the fishing for compliments when I ended up in this weird gig where I was reviewing plays at the Saskatoon Fringe Festival.
Oh.
And our main paper, the Critic, and they don't do a very good job. I think it's like they get people from like the business section to go and review plays, and they just don't know anything about theater. But I think you'd received kind of a bad notice from our wonderful critics in our paper. But I saw your show, and I mean, I'm not sure I had a different take on it than when after I talked to you afterwards about it. But it was exactly my thing, and so then I was able to like write this piece where you could actually get a usable quote out of it, and so then that's how we actually ended up meeting. And then
you did, yeah. No, I greatly appreciate that because it was a show I was doing called "The Last Straight Man in Theater," and like some people just hated it, but other people loved it. It was like either like loved it or hated it. So
I remember that.
Yeah, it gave me a great review.
I thought you were kind of going from a David Lynch point of view with some of the stuff you were doing, but you're saying it was a bit Kids in the Hall. So
no, I think it was. I could see David Lynch. I like David Lynch a lot. I think I got a Kids in the Hall. I think I got a Kids in the Hall comparison with I was playing women. I was playing female characters, but David Lynch is definitely a hero of mine. So
yeah. Anyway, that's how we first met, and then we managed to stay in touch, and then I don't know what I just must have reached out to you at some point with guesting on the podcast, and you were willing to do it. And
what did you think when Kurt said, "Hey, let's watch a Lifetime movie starring Cybill Shepherd and Steve Guttenberg"?
I was all for it. At some point I'll tell you my Cybill Shepherd story because I have a Cybill Shepherd story.
Ooh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But I thought, okay, I haven't seen Steve Guttenberg in ages, so I want to see what he looks like right now. And I mean, I wasn't a Steve Guttenberg hater. Like, he became a punchline, I think, for a little while. Isn't he in? He's in that one of the songs in The Simpsons. When they have the like stonemasons thing. And they're like, who gave Steve Guttenberg? Who made Steve Guttenberg a star? We did. They have all these kind of catchy lines like that. But I grew up watching like Three Men and a Baby and Police Academy and all of these things. So I was like curious to see him, and then just fascinated with what Cybill Shepherd was going to do, because I'm not sure meeting her is the right term for it, but years ago when I was in New York, she was on Broadway in the revival of Gore Vidal's The Best Man. Candice Bergen had been in that role, and she had moved on, and this was the middle of July, so they were kind of moving into their second cast, and she had taken over Candice Bergen's role, and so then I did the New York Broadway touristy thing and stood there to see which celebrities would come up and say hi, because it was an all-star cast. It was like Angela Lansbury, may she rest in peace, was in it. James Earl Jones, John Stamos, taking over for Eric McCormick. John Larroquette, who stole the whole show, was in it. It was just a who's who of like childhood heroes and stuff in this thing. So, and Cybill Shepherd, she came out, and I did this thing which I could kick myself. I know you don't do. You don't mention work that they have done in the past. You know, if you're going to say something about what they have performed that evening or that afternoon. But I think I said something nice about Taxi Driver. She gave me this look like thought she was like looking at Travis Bickle Jr. here or something like that. And so she just was like being very kind of cautious or whatever. But yeah, so that's the extent of my story. But I read afterwards, I've heard over the years that she is maybe not the easiest person to work with, and that she had that sitcom where she wasn't very nice to a lot of people. I don't know how much of that is true or not, but anyway, I've certainly followed her career. I just watched this Peter Bogdanovich movie, Daisy Miller. Have any of you seen that?
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah, she did a couple movies with him that bombed. After,
yeah, well, they were together, of course. She took him away from his, I don't know if it was his first wife or whatever, but yeah. Anyway,
yeah,
so,
I know that story. He's producing. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jason.
I was just gonna say, like, I mean, she's always struck me as a pretty good actor. You know, no matter what goes on in the background. But so I thought, well, if nothing else, this, you know, at least these two actors, I'll be able to anchor the story on the two actors. But I might say one of them is putting in a good effort, and I don't know about the rest of it, but I guess we'll get into the plot in a minute here. What were you gonna say, Kurt?
Oh, well, I was just gonna point out. Yes, Peter Bogdanovich was married to a woman named, I believe her name was Polly Platt, and she was the producer. She was either like a co-producer on the Last Picture Show. And while they're making the movie, he leaves his wife for Cybill Shepherd, who's in the movie. It's awful.
Wasn't she really young when she was in that?
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
There was an age difference.
Was she over 18?
I think so. Yeah.
Barely.
Yeah, she had some. Mind you, it was the late 60s, early 70s, and they didn't care as much. But because there was some brief nudity in that. But yeah. But again, I guess like that was the same time Zeffirelli had the Romeo and Juliet with the underage Juliet. Who was naked too.
But I think Cybill Shepherd was of age, and she kind of worked her way through the cast. She like briefly dated Timothy Bottoms, briefly dated Jeff Bridges, and then she got to.
How long was the shoot?
I don't. Well, she was also dating Elvis.
I think I did know that.
Period of time. She dated Elvis for a little while. Yeah. She was very busy.
Wow.
Yeah.
I consider the young Cybill Shepherd, I think she was what you call a dangerous woman. Like she was playing a lot of men, it seems.
Well, in this movie, she was a dangerous woman.
I give her credit though, because I did revisit Moonlighting recently, and she's great on that show.
Maddie Hayes.
Yeah,
Maddie Hayes. She's got chops. I mean, this Cybill Shepherd. I watched the show. I was like, I guess I knew this when I watched it as a kid, but she is real comedic chops. She's solid.
And they're cramming so much fast dialogue in that show too. It's very Gilmore Girls and just the pace and how they're kind of talking over each other and talking really fast.
Yeah.
Wow. But
yeah, that was a great vehicle for her.
Well, you know, let's get into this.
How to Murder Your Husband, the Nancy Brophy Story from Lifetime.
Now, first of all,
Sounds ridiculous.
I didn't know that it was going to be a rip from the headlines.
It's a true story.
But as far as the ripped from the headlines movies that we've watched in the past, this was actually, for me, it actually was not bad as a ripped from the headlines movie.
Huh.
You know?
This was an unusual movie.
Yes.
I think. Just the pacing of it was weird. Like
I have a theory about that, actually.
The tone of it was weird.
And maybe I'm being too forgiving because I did not think this was good at all. But I think it was a choice, possibly, that because this character Nancy is a mystery writer and by all accounts not a very good one, it felt almost like this was a story that was being told by Nancy the writer.
Right. And
okay.
And I'm not saying the movie was good by any means. But normally when we watch ripped from the headlines movies, it's just there's kind of this layer of, oh my God, this is awful, right? But with this, it was actually like they took a stab at, no pun intended, they took a stab at comedy with this movie. And they tried to make it funny. And so on that end, I was like, oh, okay, because I didn't realize it was actually ripped from the headlines until like a couple of minutes in, and I was like, oh shit, this is like a true story.
What did you think was comedic about this?
Well, I love a good voiceover, and it just, in the beginning, even her tone, it wasn't like this serious tone. It was like, oh, well, I wrote this book and I just I looked at my husband and just wanted to kill him. But it wasn't like this like ominous tone. It was like she was kind of like making light of it.
Very matter of fact. Yeah. I have a theory about her performance because it seemed like throughout most of the movie, it looked like she was about ready to fall asleep. And I think that
you and me both, sister.
I have a theory about this. I think that Cybill doesn't really, she doesn't work all the time like a lot of actors. And I think she's used to taking afternoon naps. So when she had to actually go to work, she was getting kind of sleepy. I think that the lunches, I think she kind of carved up a bit.
There is a moment in the movie where she has to get down on her knees to fix this floor tile. And when she got down there, I was like, oh, I hope she's able to get back up. And now that you say that maybe she was napping, maybe she just got down there. She's like, hey, guys, I just need 5.
But
I think they took a lunch break at that point. She slept for an hour.
But this moment in ageism is brought to you by.
Exactly.
But I'm wondering if the real woman, if that's how she was,
She's sleepy too?
That she was just very lethargic and, I
don't know about that.
Did you see like the 10-minute mini documentary piece after?
No.
I watched part of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw the real woman.
I watched the whole thing. Like, and then she doesn't really look anything like Cybill Shepherd.
Not at all.
But surprisingly, the husband and Steve Guttenberg look exactly alike now.
That is.
And I tell you, because let's get started, and then I will throw in my thoughts about Steve Guttenberg in this movie.
There's a lot to cover here. Yeah.
Okay. So we are in Oregon, and we see this car. The car's driving. It looks like it's in a bad part of town. Then we see Steve Guttenberg, and he's sharpening knives. And my first thought was, oh my God, what happened to him?
I didn't know it was him at first. I knew he was in this movie, but when he was sharpening the knives, I didn't know that was Steve Guttenberg.
I was like, holy shit, what happened to him?
Also, having grown up around kitchens, because my dad was a chef when I was younger, I didn't understand why he went from sharpening knives to getting a bag of ice out of the freezer. What dish is he making?
I remember Steve Guttenberg.
Looks cool.
My first foray into gayness was that movie Can't Stop the Music, and it was Steve Guttenberg, the Village People, and Bruce Jenner were in this movie.
It is gloriously bad.
That was directed by Nancy Walker, the Quicker Picker Upper.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so
wrote his mom.
That's my image of Steve Guttenberg with the dolphin shorts and the tank tops. So I was just like, oh my God, Steve, what happened to you?
And when you asked that on our thread, I said the passage of time. I mean, this is 45 years after that movie, Les.
But come on.
You're lucky to be alive.
Yeah.
Well, Cybill doesn't look like she did back in 1971.
Right.
But she's, you know,
No, but
you know,
I think she looks a little bit. I don't know if healthy is the right word, but maybe healthier than Steve Guttenberg looks right now. But I thought the sharpening of the knives, that's kind of like, this is the director's big vision for this opening shot, and we're dealing with a murder show here, and this is going to be exciting, and look at the sharp objects that this guy might be murdered by, you know. But there's no real logic to that scene at all.
My theory on it, because a lot of times these movies don't have huge budgets, I think they had rented out this kitchen and nobody from the props department thought to actually get some food items for him to be preparing. So they looked around the kitchen like, what's still here? Oh, there's some knives here. There's no food in the fridge, but there's some ice in the freezer. We've got to make him look like he's doing kitchen busy work.
But what happened to all of the mushrooms that they had in the other scenes? Can they have kept those and brought those into that scene?
He was in the mushrooms.
They went to craft services.
Could have had one of the chickens could have been there.
the chickens. Fun. Now, so he gets shot, right? But I didn't hear. I was wondering, was there like a silencer on the gun or something? Because he got shot, but we didn't hear any gunshots.
No.
I thought he got shot by the freezer.
Yeah.
Initially, I was like, where did that come from? But it's because it's to be a surprise who does the shooting.
Yeah.
Because we don't know what the title of this movie is called. So it was a shock to me.
Right.
When it all started to make sense towards the end. But
what?
Opening, it's a mystery.
Did you notice also there was no bullet hole in the freezer that he was standing in front of when he got shot?
None. And it barely looked like he got shot because like you saw the blood seeping down, so you knew he was shot by seeing like the little trail of blood.
Yeah.
But that was about it.
Yeah.
Well, is it possible that the bullet would still be inside him?
It's possible, but not super probable, because whoever shot him was not that far away. It would have gone through his body. Almost certainly.
Two shots, too.
Exit wound.
It was 2 shots, so he would have, like, I think, been bloodier than he was.
Is there another shooter?
Oh, a theory.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Was there a grassy knoll in that kitchen?
Right.
That's where the mushrooms are. They're growing over in the grassy knoll.
Historians will be discussing this movie for years.
So audience, listen. If you are going to commit a crime, if you are going to commit murder, do not use a minivan that is dented and obviously dented, and a minivan that could definitely be pegged on you as your getaway car, you idiot.
Yeah, speaking of that, I did find it maybe borderline unnerving that this movie actually did have some helpful hints on how to kill somebody.
Such as?
Oh, how to properly disassemble a gun so it looks like it wasn't the murder weapon. It's like, I didn't know that.
Right. Now,
we'll get to that.
Now, she was being recorded, like the getaway van was being recorded the entire time. You know, so she wasn't going to fool anybody. No. And so then, here's another deal, too. If you're going to murder your spouse and you show up at the scene and someone tells you that your spouse is dead, like the woman told her that her spouse was dead, and Cybill looked like the woman said, hey, you know what, they didn't have the pizza you wanted. Mm-hmm. Like, she just kind of looked at her.
Well, this is Cybill. I think this was shot right after lunch. I think this is one of those, you know. That scene was.
At least fake some tears. Come on.
Well.
It's your husband. And then I didn't know about you guys, because as they started taking the body away, I started thinking, like, whatever happened to Miss DePesto? Remember from Moonlighting?
Oh, yes. That's what you're thinking about. Elise Beasley? Yes. She was on a Netflix show a couple years ago.
Who, Alice DePesto?
Elise Beasley was the actress's name. She was, I forget what it was. There was a show with Jonah Hill and La La Land
Oh,
woman.
Maniac?
Maniac. Yeah, I was an extra on that show, actually.
Oh, did you see Mr.
Yeah.
Pesto?
No, but she was on it. She had like a supporting role in it. Yeah.
Did you audition for her role?
Emma Stone. Should have. I could do it, man.
Wait, Elise Beasley is only 2 years older than me? What the hell?
Wait,
Jesus.
wait.
That's depressing. No, that's impossible.
So
She
that
could be
means
two.
she's younger than me.
No.
Are you sure?
I
No,
just
you're
saw
looking
the
up
year
something.
19. Let me double check. Oh no, I take that. That was the year of her marriage. Married in 1970.
Oh, she married the guy in Ghost.
Yes.
The guy who says, "Get off my train." That guy. That was her husband,
Yeah.
right? I think
Yeah.
so.
No, they were
Yeah.
married for years.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
okay.
then Cybill is getting interrogated, and that's when we find out she's a suspense writer, and we find out that Steve is a chef, and they have chickens, and he loves to talk to the chickens, and I guess the chickens just kind of freely walk around their house.
They do. They have full reign of this house. They show up in nearly every scene.
And the house was kind of a dump.
This is like the run of Friends when they had the duck, the duck and the chick.
That seemed a little bit more in control on Friends.
Yeah,
I know,
yeah.
I know.
And so
They're
the
gonna rent
thing,
these
that kind
chickens,
of the thing that kind of confused me about this movie, and I didn't know, because the movie starts out, and he's really nice to her, and it seemed like they were in love.
Yeah,
You know?
this entire movie, actually, you never see, other than, and I'm jumping a little bit ahead here, but other than the potential insurance fraud here, you don't see any motivation for her to want to kill him.
Right.
She doesn't
'Cause,
seem bothered by him. She seems to really love him.
Right, and it turns out he's like bringing her gourmet food, and he's being really nice to her, and you know.
The Christmas thing was not jumping way ahead, but the Christmas thing was a bit cruel.
Well, yeah, but that
Yeah,
I think,
that was a bad move.
Yeah.
I sided with her on that one.
The
but
offense
that
should
I
be
think that was more
killing him.
because he
though.
was dumb. Because he was dumb. He was dumb.
He was very dumb.
Yes.
And they were
Yeah.
getting it on too. They were making the beast with two backs,
Yeah,
as
like
the
a
kids
lot,
say.
a lot.
Do the
How-
kids say
how
that?
old? I have their ages. What's that?
I said, do the kids say that?
Yeah, that's
I
what
was
the
going
kids
to ask the
say.
same thing. I work in a high school. I've never heard the kids say that, but
Yeah, they're
in on their sex conversations.
And that's probably something you shouldn't ask the kids if they say either, Jason.
no,
Right.
no.
Any kids here saying the beast with two backs? Please raise your hand.
Yeah.
So
I'll ask
old
them
do you think? How old do you think these Cybill Shepherd and Steve Guttenberg are?
Cybill Shepherd reaching, is she getting close to 80?
I'm going to say
that's
Cybill
a good
is
guess.
74.
Okay.
And I'm
Yeah.
going to say Steve is probably 71.
Yeah, I would go maybe even late 60s for Steve.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
We'll have it
thinking
less.
early 70s for Steve. Yeah, I'll do that.
And Les, what do you think about Cybill Shepherd? How old? is
Cybill,
she?
I would say Cybill is probably closer to 80 than not.
All right. Well, Cybill Shepherd's 72.
Oh,
Poor Steve Guttenberg, 64.
What?
That's a hard living
it's been a
64.
hard 2 years for poor Steve. Wow.
Damn.
That's a hard 64.
That's a hard years put in with that short circuit robot. Number
Seriously.
5.
Can't stop the music and can't stop the passage of time. Sorry, Steve.
Yeah, great. We're all immune from that.
Why couldn't there have been like 10 more police academies? Because then he could have kept working and kept in shape and
He
know,
stopped
he-
doing them after a while, though.
He stopped after part 5, part 4 or
Right.
something.
Yeah,
I
he
feel
didn't
like
do
if
all of
somebody
them.
would come back, he would have made a return.
So like how Vin Diesel came back to the Fast and Furious saga.
Probably.
They can work Steve Guttenberg back into the fold.
Right.
Yeah, I think they will.
I'd rather see Steve Guttenberg back in the police academy than Vin Diesel back in any of those Fast and Furious.
Well, with all the reboots, who knows? I bet they'll reboot Police Academy in the next few years.
Surprised they haven't.
I bet. Speaking of reboots, Kurt, what did you think of the Night Court reboot?
Night Court reboot is not funny. The jokes are falling flat, but they got to punch up the jokes. Everything else is in place. John Larroquette is a pro, better than ever. The woman, what's her name? Melissa Rauch?
Rauch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rauch. She's good. Everybody's good on the show. They just and it's a throwback. Yeah, she's supposed to be Harry Anderson's daughter. So I say it's not funny just because they are working hard to deliver the jokes, but they really need to punch that up. But it's definitely a throwback to the sitcoms of yesteryear.
Okay.
So
I'd like to see it, but it's pure nostalgia. Like I have zero expectations, but I love John Larroquette.
It's been my experience with any of these reboots. The ones that have all of the original cast and have sort of the same elements of the original show I'm able to watch them. The ones where they've got like a few of the cast members and they try and rework the premise a bit, like the Murphy Brown one, are just unwatchable. That Murphy Brown from a couple of years ago was one of the worst things I've ever seen.
Well,
Right.
Well,
Which
they also did
Brewster.
they did a reboot of Mad About You, and nobody even wanted it. Like they actually shot all these episodes, and like nobody wanted it.
NBC passed on it. NBC passed on it, and they sold it to Spectrum. So it was only shown in markets where you had Spectrum cable.
Could you imagine though? NBC's like, who told you that we wanted that we wanted a reboot?
Yeah, we would have told you not to make it.
Did anybody even
Well,
watch
we
that
just
show?
thought it was.
I loved Mad About You back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
I didn't really watch it.
There's a Thanksgiving episode that after WKRP is my favorite episode about Thanksgiving of TV of all time.
That one,
Mad About You, yeah.
But what's the other one I heard about was that 90s show. So they've done a reboot of that 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's on Netflix.
I just heard about it. It was generating some news on my phone earlier this week, but I didn't know that it was even coming out.
It came out this week, and most of the original cast is at least making cameos in it because it's their kids.
Oh yeah,
and they're living and like, what's his name? Topher Grace, his character's daughter, goes to live with the grandparents. So Red and Kitty are on it again.
So it's a kind of Fuller House formula.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't seek out Night Court. It was just like I said, the TV's on like white noise. That was on, so I was like, so I took it in as much as I could.
Well, and you hear that theme song, you can't not watch.
That was there. Yeah, they have a theme song.
Could there be a crossover of the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City and Night Court?
Ooh, I don't know why Real Housewives? I
drag them all into the Night Court.
Right.
That I would just zone out. I can't. Real Housewives. I don't know.
So anyway, speaking of housewives,
back to this.
Cybill's like living her life. Steve is like making her gourmet food. She's writing her books and stuff, and
nobody likes.
And then she makes this joke. She's like, well, she says something about killing your husband. And then she makes the joke, I don't like jumpsuits. Oh, if something like not getting caught killing your husband, and she's like, I don't like jumpsuits, and orange isn't my color.
Well, that was in her blog post, literally called "How to Murder Your Husband."
Murder your husband.
A fun, weird fact about that I learned from that documentary afterwards, because we sadly see her in a jumpsuit, an orange jumpsuit later on, but the real woman ended up in blue jumpsuits.
Oh, there you
go. Oh.
Yeah, so they didn't actually have orange as much as she doesn't. So she didn't have to wear an orange jumpsuit. So you got to be happy for her with that.
There you go.
A blue jumpsuit. That's basically hospital scrubs at that point.
Right.
I would think it would look similar, but yeah, they had a picture of her in her blue outfit in prison.
So then we see like a reenactment or whatever. What would you call it? A scene from one of Cybill's one of her stories, one of her books.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not a
I thought they were
flashback.
going to do more of that. It's only like a couple segments where they do that. I was worried about it. I thought this maybe this is going to be half the movie, and they just have Cybill Shepherd and Steve Guttenberg in a little bit of it, and the rest of it is going to be about the story within a story. But
It would have been more of a unifying tone, I think, if had they done that. I don't know that it would have been good, but it would have at least felt more uniform if they
I think
kept
like
going back to
Shepherd
that
would have
well.
been happy with that. I don't think she wanted to go to work.
Yeah.
But like the flashbacks and the divine secrets of the Yaya sisterhood, how that made that movie just flow so beautifully.
Oh,
right?
that's
Sure.
a bad one.
It really
Luckily,
did.
I watched some quality stuff. I catch some good stuff.
Oh,
We reviewed The Godfather.
Godfather? Yeah, we've got a lot to talk about.
Oh, I love that. Oh, so she finishes reading her chapter, and she's in this writing group, and all of these people are dicks, like all of them,
They're terrible.
all of them, and they're just kind of looking at her. And I noticed that one of the women at the table was like a Liza Minnelli lookalike, like she totally looked like Liza Minnelli, and so.
Yeah, we talked about these people being dicks. They absolutely were, but what's her deal that she kept going back to this group? She didn't like them. They clearly didn't like her. Why keep going back to that welfare punishment?
Who were they? Was this like a support group?
was just a writing group.
It was like a social
Writers' workshop. I
a
think.
writers.
Yeah, like a workshop.
A writers circle. Okay.
Yeah.
It was like
They might be the only people who like to write and like romance novels in this town.
No.
Because they
Yeah,
weren't really in Portland, or were they? Like it was a
Oregon
town.
somewhere.
They weren't like in a major city or
Yeah.
anything. Were they?
I don't think it was Portland, but yeah, it was
No.
definitely Oregon though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because they weren't her friends. I don't think.
No.
Like they openly mocked her they totally just mocked her at the table to her face.
Yeah, like it would have made more sense just in the way this story was told if she murdered them versus murdering her husband.
Yeah. Yeah, and it should have murdered
That's
them.
true.
Probably wouldn't even gone to prison for it because they were that horrible.
Yeah, I think the judge would be like, "Yeah, I get it."
Yeah.
And
A jury would convict her.
So then we quickly realized, because she starts getting the rejection, we quickly realized that she just can't write like that. She has no writing talent.
She's
whatsoever.
oblivious. Nobody likes her writing.
Okay, so this
Except her
next,
husband.
so they cut back to the school, and I actually want this outfit for next Halloween.
Oh yes.
I loved this outfit because Steve works for a culinary school, and so in this scene he was dressed up like a slab of meat, like an animal with the different parts of meat, and so all of the kids had to go and figure out which part of the meat was which and put Post-its on.
It was little bit like pin the tail on the donkey, except it was pin the slab of meat on Steve Guttenberg.
Yeah, but I love that. I love that outfit though, and I really do want to try to get it.
I thought it was a little weird. I mean, your teacher's bent over, like, oh, what's going on there?
I legit
inappropriate
felt
there.
bad for Steve Guttenberg. I'm like, this poor guy hasn't been in a movie in like 30 years. And they're like, okay, we're going to let you back into the club, Steve, but you have to put on this fucking costume and climb on a table.
A meat outfit.
Yeah.
I tell
And be
you,
on all four.
what's crueler than show business?
Right.
Nothing.
I do have to admire the guy. Like I think he put his all into this performance. I mean,
He did.
Yeah.
if there's any energy in this film, it's coming from him.
Yeah.
He doesn't have great things to say or do, but he does them, and he does them happily. So that's good for him.
I'm going to archive this movie because I could watch the Cybill Shepherd scenes to help me fall asleep, and then in the morning, as I wake me up, I get the Steve Guttenberg scenes on.
He's probably like, she's so sleepy that I got to put some extra energy in this just because.
Yeah. He's absolutely trying
she
to
tells
bring up the energy.
She tells
in
him
a
at one
moment.
point that half of him is what the strength of two men. She says something like that.
So Cybill shows up in class and he calls her the management. That's what he calls her to all the kids, like the management's here. And,
I like that.
And still, I keep on still throughout this movie, he's like, the guy's like extremely nice to her, like really nice to her.
Yeah,
Yes.
you know
Lesser
what
writing.
I think would have made more sense is if they played up the fact that she was the one making the business decisions and he was the carefree one that didn't want any part of that, and that's where the tension in their marriage would come from, but they never put tension between them.
Right. And
I would say I like the idea that he's a nice guy, because in most of these movies, he'd be some sort of abusive jerk or verbally abusive or something like that. And then we're just on this, oh yeah, go ahead and kill him. That's kind of a flipping of roles that
But there's got to be
there might have been potential in it. I don't know.
because the thing is, he wasn't even annoying. Like, he wasn't even annoying. He was just, he was just kind of there.
I don't know. Those chickens were fucking annoying.
The focus on mushrooms and the chickens, and he's only talking about food and cooking all the time. And he's saying nice things about her writing, then he transitions into food. Like,
that sounds good to me. I want someone around complimenting my writing and making me food all day. What more do I need?
That's the mothership calling you home,
She's
Kurt.
getting laid.
do you want live chickens in your place, like flying by you when you're having friends or like group
kind
over?
of.
You do?
Kind of. Oh, and then obviously they had a lot of sex because they did like sexy proofreading.
Yeah. Sexy
Their
fruit. That was
foreplay
really
creeped me the fuck out.
They were literally proofreading her work. I thought, oh, this is kind of okay. This is going to lead into. It's not going to be, it's Lifetime. They aren't going to go too far with this. But I thought, oh, this is kind of their foreplay, and then they're in bed and they're actually proofreading her work. So I guess it's creepy, but I got amusement out of it.
But she's getting it on the regular, She was
And I tell you, the one thing I did like about this movie that is unusual is that I enjoy when people are in financial turmoil and they have to kind of and then they have to kind of work it out to kind of make, because then I'm watching it, I'm kind of trying to figure out what could she do, because I don't know, I have an interest in like crunching numbers, so I enjoy watching and thinking, well, how could she get herself out? What could she do? What kind of
Is it the number crunching that fascinates you, or is it this sort of solving of the puzzle?
There's something interesting to me about I guess you could say that finances are kind of interesting and like negotiating bills and things like that. That I just have an interest in that. I've helped people with stuff like that before.
Okay.
I think if they had a casting change and it was Mary Louise Parker, then she could have sold weed to that writers group.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right.
Oh, that was a good show.
And they could have fixed up their house.
See, if
Weeds
Cybill had some weave, she'd be way more creative.
Yeah, I used to love weeds.
It's also interesting how people just sort of get their finances kind of get away from them, and they have to kind of, I don't know. It's an interest.
Oh, so then Cybill, we see her and she's Googling places to travel to. And so she's fixated on Portugal for some reason. And so this next part, so Steve and Cybill, like, he's a good, like, he feeds the homeless, right? And yep. So his mom is there, and he and his mom looked like they were around the same age. Yeah, she did not look much
She's
older.
a tad. Okay.
Karen, his mom. And so they had a catering business as well, but they were having a big client that was doing an engagement party, and the big client canceled. And so that like left them pressed for money.
And she pulls up in a wreck of a car.
Yeah.
It was so weird. She just pulls up at this like festival or wherever they were slinging food. Basically just shows up there to tell him, hey, our business is a mess. Like, that couldn't have waited till he got home?
And the car's
Wasn't
up.
that when they were feeding the homeless?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, they're feeding.
Yeah, I thought that was. I don't know if that was. That I wrote down lines that I found interesting, and there was that homeless guy who he was so excited. He said, "Your boy makes a damn fine Irish stew." And then she pulls up in the car that doesn't function anymore after that. and says we need a new car, and then I think the in-laws come through with the van. So, but
the minivan with a dent in it, but still, you know,
one of the homeless people moved into her car, and he was downscaling. That's how shitty the car was. I like that.
Oh, and so
just trying to make a solid joke. So. I gave it a good effort. It's like that Night Court reboot. I'm trying to sell the jokes.
Wait, what did they say that happened to Bull?
Well, I remember in the last episode of Night Court, Bull went off with 2 aliens. He went off to Jupiter or somewhere. That was the last shot of the original Night Court.
Oh, okay.
So I have a solid answer.
Maybe in the season finale he'll come back for a visit.
Right.
Is it Richard Mole no longer with us?
No, he's with us.
Oh, he is? Okay.
Marsha Warfield's very much with us.
I know she is.
No.
Oh, okay. So the car breaks down. The mother-in-law gives them their extra car, which is a minivan with a dent in it. And so then we see Cybill, and the bills are just coming. Like the bills, there is no reprieve for these people.
It was an unpaid bills montage, Les.
Yes, they did. They did. The bills were like flying in and flowing, and she's writing checks. and some of the bills actually weren't that bad. Like there was a $600 one, but so she needs money, and she's talking to her friend of hers, and her friend is a life insurance agent. So even though they were broke, though, she had already had like a bunch of life insurance policies even before her scheme.
Yeah, and she's trying to borrow against them.
Yeah. And so he's like, you can't do that, but if you're really strapped for cash, I can give you a job here. And
he said something along the lines of like, you seem to have an interest in this. Like he should have known immediately what the fuck she was doing.
Right.
Well, maybe he hires corrupt people. So
Maybe.
He needs some sleazy people working there.
You have a real aptitude for gaming the system.
Yeah. Go take a seat. And then she looks over like she sees the people working and they're all in like cubicles. She's like, I'm not doing that. Get there and get to work. You need the money.
Right.
But it felt like it was brighter lighting, but like the office from Glengarry Glen Ross. And then when she goes to do that, starts knocking on the door to sell insurance later on. I just thought of Jack Lemmon going around trying to get people to buy swampland.
Well, that part I felt sorry for her.
Yeah,
I did feel sorry for her in that part.
She got an offer to work.
No, the part where she showed up door to door. I did feel sorry for her in that part. Oh, so then their their lives are getting worse. Their bills are piling up. Steve is talking to chickens, and then she's like,
yeah, like they can understand him.
and so
they have children too, apparently.
Yeah, and that part. So Jason, it's funny that you mentioned that, because that part I didn't realize until the movie was almost over that that one guy was actually his son.
I think it was Steve's son, but not Cybill's. I think it was his stepson.
He'd had a previous family or something, maybe. Yeah.
But they didn't make it, like, they didn't specify that the guy was the son. So I knew that the guy was a relative, but I didn't realize that it was his son. And the little kids were his grandkids.
Oh, I didn't follow that.
Oh,
that one. Yeah. That's later when that girl hugs Cybill Shepherd and she gives absolutely no love to that child. Yeah.
Now the sex part, I would have killed him. Because they're like, they're getting like, bills and shut off notices and everything else. And she's like, well, why don't you get a job as a private chef because, you know, if you got a job as a private chef, that could really help us out. And he's like, no, I don't want a job as a private chef.
Yeah, these people, they don't want to work. I mean, neither does Cybill. She's kind of walking half asleep, but the characters don't want to work. You got to work.
That's the actor not wanting to work.
Losing all your money.
It did seem shitty that she ends up having to take a job at the insurance company eventually, but he won't take a job working as a chef for a tech billionaire.
Make some cash.
Like that's when they should have made it evident that, okay, now she's done with him. She wants to kill him.
Right. And then instead he's like, well, I'd rather take a job at a nursing home, and he took a job at a nursing home. And then he was like telling her, you should teach writing. And so then she sets up this little booth, and she's like handing out her card to teach writing. But, you know,
a waste of money. Another waste of money. So if you're going to try to be a writing teacher, you're going to set up a booth and pay money for that? Like what? I don't know. Advertise online? Put up a flyer?
Yeah, because she had to have that tent made up.
Stuff costs money.
It's a couple grand right there.
Well, that's why these people have such this. I'm telling you, this fascinates me because you could see the components of why they have these financial disastrous issues.
But the goons from her group kind of descend on that booth.
Oh, they show up.
Oh yeah.
Fully more. Like they come out of nowhere whenever something kind of bad is happening to her. They just pop out of nowhere.
That's true though. You take like a shitty job. You take a shitty job and your like unsupportive buddies show up and laugh at you. It's that kind of thing, you know.
And yeah, they
laugh at her.
And yet, Jason, you're right, because they invite her to Vegas, and she knew damn well that she could not afford to go on that trip.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like talking about renting a penthouse, and there's no way that she could support it. Oh, and another thing that was weird too is they were talking about how they would buy things that they were writing about. So like somebody was writing about night goggles. They were talking about how they bought night goggles.
Yeah, they had like a trade program. Like, oh, I have night goggles from my book that I wrote, and it's like, oh, I've got this tennis racket wrapped in, you know, spider webs. I whatever the hell it was. Oh, it was night goggles for a switchblade.
Right.
Who are these people? Like, are they all independently wealthy that they can just?
They must be.
Well, they're living it up in Vegas, and they're buying night goggles.
I guess.
I hate to sound sexist, but the majority of them were women. So I'm sure they were women of a certain age. So I'm sure that they were married or widowed, or they had another stream of income going on.
OnlyFans.
OnlyFans.
They were all on OnlyFans.
Okay.
Or porn.
Why didn't Cybill and Steve? Because Cybill and Steve were still going at it. They should have set up an OnlyFans. Money problem solved right there.
They move over to HBO then, or HBO Max maybe.
Right.
Their movie then. Do that.
They don't pay for content anymore. They're getting rid of everything.
Oh, they're getting rid of everything, right?
Yeah.
HBO Maxes?
Yeah.
Yep. So then she needs money, and so what does she do? She buys a plane ticket and flies down to see her brother, who's battling
She's trying
cancer.
to get money from him, though.
Yeah.
Yes.
Her brother who's battling cancer. So she goes to hit him up for money. And
speaking of money, do you want to guess the net worths of Steve Guttenberg and Cybill Shepherd? I have it right in front of me.
what? I would say Steve Guttenberg is probably like 500,000, and I would say Cybill Shepherd is definitely over $1 million.
I'll say $1 million for Guttenberg, $3 million for Cybill Shepherd.
I'm gonna say 800,000 for Guttenberg. Cybill, I'm gonna say Cybill's probably like 9 million.
Okay, well, I was off also when I guessed, but Steve Guttenberg's worth 12 million.
Oh,
what?
Wow!
Don't you remember Steve Guttenberg was in he had a run in the 80s of like a 6-year run where he was in like
but they weren't paying the massive paydays back then, and he certainly wasn't earning massive paydays.
If he made investments, if he made real estate investments, those would have grown over the years. So he probably did. Cybill Shepherd is worth 40 million.
Wow.
Okay.
That surprised me too. But remember, so back in the 80s, not only was she doing moonlighting, she was doing a lot of like perfume ads and things like that. So she was all involved with that. Plus that sitcom lasted 4 years. She was like one of the highest paid.
Yeah,
women,
and she probably had a producer
TV.
credit on that show. She probably owns a
She
small
did.
stake in it. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So they both saved well. They both saved, unlike their characters.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
so her sister-in-law. So it was kind of funny because it all started out like really nice, and everybody was really nice, and then it quickly took a turn. And she walked in while the sister-in-law is shit-talking her to the brother-in-law, saying, because she asked him for money, and then they go.
She never asked, actually. She overhears the sister-in-law talking to her brother, saying like, you're not her ATM. So Nancy never even gets the courage to ask.
Right. And then he comes out and he's like, "Oh, I put my money in this house, and so I have no cash."
Yeah, he says he's condo rich, cash poor. Got those HOA payments.
I was focused on Cybill Shepherd's racism in the scene.
Wait, what?
I know, right?
I don't know if it's racism in the character, but racism in the writing as well too. Like she goes, "Oh, can you go inside and make me a Vietnamese coffee?" And anyway, I was just like, "Oh, really? They're doing that, huh?" Okay.
Was that racist? Actually, I wasn't familiar with Vietnamese coffee.
But his wife is Vietnamese, I believe.
I just took that as
Or
the wife has made this before, and Cybill loves it so much, so she's asking for it again.
Vietnamese coffee is really good.
Yeah, it is.
So,
It is really
so you're
good.
saying you're saying that she's the wife's going to actually make what to us would be plain coffee, because she's Vietnamese, it would be Vietnamese coffee. That's what Cybill.
I don't
Yes,
know. Maybe
that's exactly what it is.
Maybe
That's
I'm
bad.
I don't know.
Doesn't Vietnamese
Cybill
coffee have
knows
pho noodles in it?
What?
I said, doesn't Vietnamese coffee have pho noodles in it?
Noodles.
Yeah, like pho.
Pho.
A long way to run. Okay. I don't know. I've not
Like
had.
soup.
It's a Vietnamese soup.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's good. So this is where she's an idiot, okay? Because she goes back home and she's talking to Steve, and she's like, "We have absolutely no money, but I'm going to go to Vegas." And it's like, honey, if she was like 22 and having this conversation, I'd actually kind of get it. But it's like, you're like, come on, you're an adult here. You know better.
Well, and she was seemingly the more responsible one with money on paper.
Well, yeah, other than that,
Yeah.
was.
Who was
She
more
was
responsible? He was, right?
No, she was. He
She
was
was more
super
responsible
carefree
for
and didn't have any concept of money. She at least knew, like, hey, we're in deep debt here.
Oh,
But I'm going to Vegas anyway. And
yeah.
They both were doing irresponsible things financially.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she at least the way she talked, she sounded more financially responsible.
Yeah. I mean, he was allowing the chickens to do his taxes, and I think that was just misguided.
That's. Yeah, I think that's a bad.
I missed that scene.
Wouldn't she be collecting Social Security at this point? Like, could
well,
she
you
get
got
some
to
of that
pay into
going?
it to collect it.
Huh?
You got to pay into
Sorry.
the system to collect.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Don't you get it regardless? I don't. Okay.
Well,
Okay,
but
but
then-
we don't know what a pass was.
But then I think but Social Security isn't like all that much.
It's
It's
not
lot
a
of money.
windfall, no.
Depends on what. Yeah. On how much you worked, I guess, over the years.
So
I
then
don't know how
we're in
old they
Vegas.
were at this time.
Oh,
Well, they said he was 60 in the show. His character was 60. I don't know what she was supposed to be. In real life, I said she's.
71. She's supposed to be like
72.
she was older than he was in real life.
Oh, okay.
So then they're in Vegas and they're eating dinner with like shirtless waiters. So it's like a Chippendales restaurant or something.
I want to know where this place was.
Yeah.
I was in Vegas
here.
over the weekend. I did not see this.
You didn't see the Chippendales restaurant?
No.
I don't want a man's nipple hovering over my veal.
Well, this is where you and I differ.
Right.
Okay.
It makes the veal taste that much better. So then they're eating, and I guess it's time to pay up. And the Chippendales waiter comes up and is like, "Your card didn't work." And then she gets another one, and he's like, "Your card didn't work." But she knew damn well her cards weren't going to work when she went there in the first place. And then one of her dick friends is like, "Oh, I'll get it," with a big smirk on her face.
Well, she should be allowed to smirk there because Cybill went there without a working card. You should be able to hold that over somebody. If somebody came there knowing that they were going to make you pay for their food.
And then
I guess she knew it was gonna. Yeah, because she was like, "Oh, charge it to my room." It's like, no, we can't. What if they did charge it to her room? Then what was she gonna do?
sneak out.
Sneak out in the
It
middle.
was
of the
a
night.
safe face, so. But I don't know. I thought it was actually a nice thing that the woman did. Like most of the time, she was right with the others, but
But the look on her face, though, was like,
yeah,
you're-
she was
you're
enjoying it.
Oh, she was absolutely enjoying it.
Yeah.
And then the lady tells her, "Oh, you're in a rough patch, but you'll get over it. You'll be fine."
Well, that's encouraging.
And so she ends up, So then she ends up, taking the insurance job, and then she's still getting interrogated, and she's being recorded while she's getting interrogated. Then they show her, doing the door to door, and she goes, and the person's like a totally dick to her.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess this is why it does not pay to work in insurance, because I guess she'd had this big sale. The big sale really had helped them out financially. Like it went and covered their mortgage and all this stuff. And didn't she even say it got their house out of foreclosure for a minute or something? Like it really helped them.
Yeah. Well, it was her commission, but this sale went away, and she had to pay the commission back. Now, I've worked in radio where the salespeople get a commission. Like the commission isn't normally paid out till the money is in the business's bank. So the fact that they had the money from this client, and then the sale somehow went away, and she had to give the commission back, that seemed wild to me.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's like there was. I guess the way they're describing it, there must have been a guarantee through the insurance so that they could.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was like a money back guarantee.
So then her, she's getting more bills, and more rejection letters. Like she's getting a bunch of rejection letters, and all of the rejection letters have the same critique on her writing.
Yeah. So you
And
can negotiate those bills. This is one thing. You could call those bill collectors. So you owe like $600. Say, look, I can only pay. I've been owing this. I can pay you $400. That's it. That's all you're gonna get from me. And sometimes they'll say, okay.
Yep.
So then, so she's still upset about not getting her book, like being able to get her books published. And so then she's talking to Steve about it, and he basically is like, "Oh, well, you're writing the books. That should be enough. And you should be doing it because you love it. You shouldn't be doing it to make a living at it." And
Says the guy that doesn't want to go work for a tech billionaire making food.
right.
He's happy talking to chickens.
He treats it like it's a hobby or it's this fun, or that's how she takes it at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's
Patronizing her, yeah.
And her writing really wasn't that good, so I'm sure that he knew that her writing wasn't that great. And so then they end up having. So then they have like their first fight in the movie. And the movie's like over halfway over, almost like halfway over. And so then she decides that she's gonna self-publish. And the friends are all like, "Don't do that. if you self-publish. I guess they were all vying for this award. So they're like, if you self-publish, you won't get this award. And if you self-publish, no one is going to ever respect you.
She's not going to win the award anyway. But it's like she walks out of her house and there is like a crowd of them, like a witch hunt.
Yeah.
You know?
They pop out of nowhere anytime.
Well, whenever you say you're going to self-publish, there's usually a witch hunt. So there should be a witch hunt outside your house.
I like that her justification for why, like, they said nobody's going to take you seriously. She said 50 Shades of Grey. As if, like, yes, that's made an enormous amount of money, but respect? I don't know if it's got that.
Right.
I think the Celestine prophecy that started out as a self-published book, so she could have used that as an excuse.
And wasn't
But no, she's
self-published?
Twilight?
Was it?
No, not
I don't think so.
It was 50 Shades was Twilight fanfic.
Oh. Oh, okay.
Cybill's got blind confidence, though.
Yeah, she
We'll go with
does.
that.
So then her brother calls her, and her brother, I guess, was in recovery, and so he fell off the wagon and relapsed.
Which is a weird thing to say. If you relapse, that's not really falling off the wagon. Isn't that more like an alcohol thing? Or
Yeah. Yep.
he said I fell off the wagon. I was like, well, what? Okay.
No, I think there were two things going on. I think he had fallen off the wagon alcohol-wise.
Oh, he did. Oh, he
in
did.
addition
Okay.
to also having cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It got confusing until a bit later on because they were hinting at something in that earlier scene.
Wow.
And again, like I said, I think it may have been a legit choice that this is deliberately poorly plotted.
Yeah.
Because it's her. She's an unreliable narrator, maybe here.
Yeah.
For you to give some credit.
So then she goes to her writer's club, and the bitchy woman who covered her meal was like, not only am I a finalist for this award, I also got a literary agent. And Cybill was so mad that she broke the glass in her hand and cut her hand.
Nobody noticed this.
No one noticed.
No. Nobody. In fact, the fact that nobody reacted in that moment led me, the viewer, to think, "Oh, is this a dream sequence? Did she actually not really do that in the moment? She's just mad at them." But then later, you see her with a bandage on her hand,
like a huge bandage.
Yeah.
Yeah. She has it for a while.
It's got that super strength.
Okay, so then in the next scene, and this is a funny name for a flower. Steve brought her Rose, was it Rosie Pussy Toes?
Yes.
It sure was. You don't forget that.
What are pussy toes?
Well, less. I know it's been a few years, but
Why are there feet on it, Kurt?
What's that?
Why are there feet on it?
Ask Quentin Tarantino. He's the one that's into feet. So
I'll text him and find out.
He bought her pussy toes. And
Jason, and all of the other legitimate cinema that you've watched, have you ever heard mention of Rosie Pussy Toes before?
No, I feel like I should have at this point.
Hey, that's a good stripper name.
It's a good stripper
The
name.
closest I can think of is From Dusk Till Dawn and Cheech Marin being that carnival barker outside of the strip club when they go into Mexico. That's the closest.
Oh, yeah, he goes through like a whole monologue.
I'm not repeating any of that because
It's a good stripper name. It's a good drag queen name. It's a good film noir, like His Girl Friday kind of name.
Yeah.
It's kind of a good James Bond villain.
Yes, it's a James Bond villain. That's what it is.
What's your name?
I'm Rosie Pussy Toes.
What's your name? Pussy Toes. Rosie Pussy Toes. I'm Pussy Galore's sister.
I don't want to say this, but I actually used it as my confirmation name when I was.
It was my AOL Instant Messenger name back in the 90s.
Yes, see, we all have this connection.
Oh, so then the tile, she looks at it. So then the tiles on their floor, their house is just so janky that the tiles keep on breaking, and she has to glue the tiles back in the floor. And so at this point, she looks down at the janky floor, and she's just done. She's done. She's over.
She's handy, though. She's trying to fix the sink and
yeah, because the sink is broken too. She's like the handyman. and she's like fixing the tile. He's talking to a chicken, and she's just like over it.
But the way you describe it does sound exhausting.
Well, I mean, could you imagine like your house is falling apart and your spouse is talking to chickens? Well,
They
your
have
house,
kind of a nice house, though.
it was, and I guess they built it themselves too.
She could have gotten a job as a handyman, handy person.
Because she was fixing it. She
Yeah.
was fixing
What was she
everything.
doing with the sink? Was she actually fixing the sink?
She was trying because it was dripping. She was trying to tighten up the faucet.
Okay.
Is building suspense and tension, that dripping faucet, because that was making her more and more angry.
Yeah.
And
I
thinking
can
more and
see that.
more about killing her husband.
Okay.
And so then she's like, she tells him, you know what? We should sell our house because we could actually make money selling this house. And then he was so dumb. He was like, well, yeah, let's sell the house and move into a tiny house. And she's like, no. And so she's so I think him suggesting they move into a tiny house is what kind of pushed her over the edge.
Yeah.
Well, she wanted to move to Portugal still. She wanted to sell the house.
So then she does what you should never do. People, because she self-published her book, don't read the comments. Don't.
They weren't good.
Because, yeah, she started reading the comments, and they were not good. They were not good at all. And this is when she decides, I'm just going to kill him. I'm done. So then she starts like, she's going to kill him for the life insurance. So then she actually gets a reduction on their mortgage, which was that good business practice, Kurt?
Oh, she does that. Yeah, she goes. Yeah, she negotiates it.
But that was good, though, right? That she did that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, so she gets a reduction on their mortgage. Oh, and then she starts asking him to sign, like, papers. Like,
Yeah, because she kept taking out more insurance policies on him.
Yeah.
What I thought was silly about that is, she's taking all these policies out on him and is making him sign the papers. Like, she's already committing insurance fraud. Why you even need his signature to sign for him?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so now she's trying to figure out how to kill him. And then at this point, she had like 8 different life insurance policies on him.
Yeah.
Wait, how is this insurance fraud though? She's getting legitimate.
Well, it's going to be fraud at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay,
she's gonna
that's true.
kill him and to use the money. So
Why else would you need 8 policies on the same person?
It was premeditated for sure. So
Yeah.
then, but he keeps signing them. You think he might start to wonder.
But he was pretty dumb.
No, he's thinking about his chickens.
Yeah. And then at one point, her insurance, she's talking to her insurance friend, and he's like, I don't know what. Oh, because he was also like, okay, this is getting kind of fishy. Opening, having all these policies, and then he was like, I don't know what your problem is. You have a husband. He loves you. You're getting dicked all the time. I don't know why you're so upset. But she was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so she's still trying to figure out how to murder him. And during this time, she's trying to figure out how to murder him and sell her house. And so they start they started working on the house. They're like, okay, so we can sell this house, but it needs work. And so they start fixing up the yard and like putting pesticides in the yard. And Steve gets upset about that.
He's bitching about making it too suburban.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, you're going to sell it anyway.
Yeah.
So what's your problem?
Yeah.
And
I mean,
Is that hard to sell?
well, the house was like
A
a
nice
wreck.
house. Yeah. It looks
That's
okay,
what
man.
that's what the realtor said, that they had like the house, they needed a lot. It needed a lot
And like,
of work.
you know, they literally have a chicken coop in their yard.
Yeah.
yeah.
And I'm sure
You
there
try to keep everything environmentally friendly and natural in the backyard, but that wouldn't be good for selling. So they had to do something with the backyard. And he's also worried about the chickens getting poisoned.
yeah, I'm sure that yard was full of shit. Like,
It had to.
Okay. Yeah, that's unattractive.
I thought the house might be too, because the
Yeah.
chickens are just in bed with them, and I mean they're everywhere.
yeah. So then she gets a foreclosure notice.
Wow.
So she's really just like stressed out at this point.
Yeah.
So then it's Christmas. And this is the part, Jason, that you were talking about
Yeah.
that was like awful. And this basically just put the nail in his coffin. Because she's like, this whole movie, she'd been talking about going to Portugal. And so he was supposed to work that night, but he's like, well, let's do gifts first. And he's like, I have got the surprise. I've got what you've been wanting. I got you a getaway to Portugal. And she's like, oh my God, she's so happy. And it turned out that he got her like Portuguese sausage. And
See, the problem was he oversold it. Or he just sold it incorrectly. She would have been happy if you just said, okay, I've got something that I know you're going to want. It's
Right.
sausage. If you had said it like that, I think she would have been happy.
but
Yes, it's sausage while we proofread.
I've got some sausage for your rosy pussy toes.
right.
It all comes together.
And so that really, she was like, you know what, fucker, I'm going to go buy a gun. After that,
Yeah.
I'm buying a gun.
That was, and then the gun shop deal. That was one of the like most pleasant characters. Like she had this conversation. Was so excited to tell her what she could do to get away with murder, because she was excited to. Oh, you write about murders and stuff. So provided probably way too much information.
Oh, she loved her job, that gun sales lady.
Wonderful advice. So now, so if you get a gun to shoot somebody, you have to take out part of it, right? I forget what they
Yes.
said. To take out, so you have to order like an extra part. To take
Yeah.
out that part, put the other part in, and then it's no longer the weapon of choice.
Yeah, because she was like, you know, after shooting the person, get the same part and swap it out
Okay.
with the same make and model.
But
All you
people-
murderers out there.
But the other part was still traceable because she literally bought it on fucking eBay.
Right.
Yeah, you can't do
When
that.
you're buying weapons to kill people, don't use your own eBay account.
No, don't do that. You have to get on the dark web or something
Surely
like that.
you should be able to buy that in guest mode.
Right.
You know, when you're on some shopping sites, they want you to create an account, but sometimes they're like, shop as a guest. Just shop as a guest. Don't create
Yeah,
an
that'd be
account.
anonymous.
Oh, so then she gets excited because then she finds out if a person dies on their job, you get an extra $100,000.
Where's she getting these policies? Okay. Jesus. What if you work from home?
So she's like, hell yeah. Then, so she's going to kill him. Then she has like a tech rehearsal. Just like a dry run.
She really was. I wrote dry run in my notes as well.
Yeah. So like she goes and does everything, and he's like, oh, she startles them, and what was I lost my place. So then after that, he's being really nice to her. So then she changes her mind. She's like, maybe I don't want to kill him after all. And so she meets this agent in a parking lot. And she goes to this talk. And then after the talk, it's like an empty parking lot. The only thing that was missing from that parking lot was a person with a black hoodie on. And it was really creepy looking.
I wrote something in my notes, and I don't remember what this is referring to. I wrote, and then Marshall arrived, and her non-orgasmic body cranked out climaxes like a pachinko machine on the fritz.
Oh, she was writing about her characters.
Oh, so this was Nancy's writing, or was this the other writer that she went to go see the TED Talk from or whatever?
I think it was Nancy's writing.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
And so
I'm here for it.
That sounds like Nancy's writing.
Yeah.
I like it.
And so
I'll publish that.
So she scares the agent, and so she's like, I have this manuscript. Can you take my manuscript? And the agent is like, no, for very good reason. And so finally, Nancy wears her down, and she's like, okay, don't tell anybody, but I'll take it and I'll read it and I'll get back to you. Well, that was a big mistake, because then Nancy starts calling her and calling her and calling her and calling her. And the poor receptionist was just going through it.
It was like a jump cut montage of her calling. And what I thought was hilarious about this is the woman that played the receptionist, they made her dress in a bunch of different outfits for the jump cuts, but Cybill is wearing the same outfit through the entire time. So it's supposed to show the passage of time. She's calling a lot of different days. Cybill's wearing the same outfit the entire time.
You have to say
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
I just thought she kept. I didn't realize that the receptionist had a costume change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like that section of the movie because it sort of reminded me, it had the potential, because I'm a big fan of those 1990s thrillers. It had a bit of a single white female, the temp type of a vibe to it. The stalking of the agent who'd been sort of nice to her, whether you believe that she'd actually take her novel or not. But yeah. And she was so nice to her, even when they got on the phone and she gave the critique. Like, say, I don't appreciate you abusing my receptionist, but I want to talk to you about your novel, and was actually giving some constructive feedback.
Wait, so you thought that was nice?
Yes,
Well,
I agree.
Nicer than it could be. It could be like,
It was nice that she even spoke to her.
Yeah, she could have just called the cops.
Because I took it as, because she puts her on speakerphone, right? And I took it as she was like, okay, listen, bitch, I'm going to tell you about your novel.
Why did she stop to give a critique of her book then? I thought, just leave us alone. I'm not going to publish your book. Give it up. If I hear from you again, we're calling the police. I mean, that would be, I think she could have been.
I agree, Jason. I think she was actually being, maybe nice isn't the word, but she took time out of her. She's like, all right, you want to know about your book? I'll tell you. I'm going to tell you right now because you keep asking, so here you go.
Yeah.
The plot sucks.
Yeah.
Apparently that's what her big complaint. Her plots don't jibe.
Right.
Like this movie.
Did you guys ever read a friend's book? Because I don't think I've done that.
Not a friend's book. I read a friend's play.
Oh, okay.
And
I have a couple friends or acquaintances that have had actual published bestsellers. So I've read those books, but I've never read a manuscript before it's gone to publishing or anything like that.
No, not that. I have heard. Well, we know people who self-publish and stuff like that, and I have some of the books around, but I never actually read them.
Yeah, and same. I have some friends that are self-published, and I have their books, but I haven't read them.
Yeah.
But every now and then I'll have a friend be like, I wrote this solo show. Can you read it? And 9 times out of 10, I read it, and the choice is either tell them what you really think or tell them that you never got around to it.
So are they calling you every 5 minutes? Like, Les, did you read my play? Did you read it?
Actually,
Les, why aren't you taking my call? Les, did you read the play?
I did have one person like that would message me every day, like, to read it.
Oh, just like in this movie.
And then I was finally like, but luckily it happened when I was on the road. It happened when I was at a festival. I was like, I'm really, focusing on the festival right now, which was true. And because a lot of the festivals that we go to are like 10 days long. They're really intense. And so I really was focusing on the festival. So that got me out of it. But the play was not that good. So then the next scene, she goes and she follows him to work and she kills him. And she's pretty mean about it.
She shoots him twice.
Yes. And I read the true, like, I Googled it and read the true account of it. And so I guess in the real shooting, she shot him and then she went up to him, and while he was dying, she looked him in the eyes and smiled and shot him in the real, which this one she
How do they know that?
That's what they wrote.
But
Even in the article that I sent, because I sent the article in our thread, and that's what they said in the thread.
Right, but the only way that they would know if she smiled at him, there would have to be cameras.
She told them.
Well, no, I guess.
Oh, she told them.
I guess she. I
guess so.
Told them that.
There's also a scene where the whole family comes over and they're all sitting before that. They're all sitting at the table eating, and she's just sitting there, unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Miserable.
She did not like situation. And so she shoots him. Then she goes home. Then her sister-in-law calls and is like, okay, your brother has relapsed and he's a mess right now.
Stage 4 cancer.
And then she calls Steve's cell phone just to give herself an alibi. And then her mother-in-law calls and is like, you need to get over there. And that's when she goes over there. And that's when the cops are there. And she was really calm the entire time. They're like, your husband got shot. And she was like, oh, really? Okay.
That is too bad.
Like I said,
so that you had to discover the body, student.
Right. So then, she was like, they're interrogating her, and she's like, well, you can look at my gun if you want. I have a gun, but you can check it out if you want. And so
you could look at my totally not the murder weapon, guys. It's totally not.
Yeah. Yeah. And so meanwhile,
some of these scenes, it was kind of I know she was probably taking naps between, but in what form were they happening? So I imagine in the interrogation one, she was kind of putting her head on the desk. I used to do that when I was in school. Say, okay, time to take a little nap. You put your head on the desk.
So like a cat nap? She took
Yeah, it was a desk nap. And the scenes where she's fixing the floor, that was just a floor nap.
Right.
Now the best was when they were shooting in bed, because then you could just sleep in bed.
She had a wig on in bed in one of the scenes. I was like, why is she wearing a wig right now?
Yes. And
I down myself up when I go to bed.
Have I talked on this podcast about Five Guysing?
No.
So I have a friend, and you kind of know him less, but I have a friend that one time we were at Gym Bar, and right next to Gym Bar in LA used to be a Five Guys Burgers. And this friend said, oh, I'm going to go next door. So I see him go over to Five Guys, and this is only 4 or 5 years ago. So newspapers are already no longer a thing. Look over to Five Guys, and this friend is sitting in front of Five Guys with a newspaper up in front of him, And I realized he's napping. He went over there to take a nap.
Five Guys?
And so I called him out on it. He's like, yeah, I kind of do stuff like that all the time. Like sometimes I'll be really, really tired and I'll like go in a bathroom and take a little disco nap. So now anytime I see him like dozing off or like he's able to make it look like he's like in the moment without actually being asleep, even though he's actually asleep. So we call it Five Guys.
So he had the paper like he was reading it?
Yeah.
Up in front of his face?
He was holding it up.
Wow.
Yeah.
I gotta respect that.
So I think Cybill Shepherd did some Five Guysing in this movie.
Right?
I think so too.
Okay. So what she didn't know is like the entire thing was on video. So they had her janky, busted up car on video. So they knew it was her. And then all of her insurance policies ended up getting rejected. Like all of them.
Well, there's a memorial also. She goes to that. Was that in a parking lot? The memorial?
Yeah, that was my question. Look, what was it? Was it at the school or?
It was at the school.
Yeah, the parking lot at the school where he was murdered.
Yeah, at the school.
You know where I want to be memorialized is the place where I was murdered.
Right.
Or the Five Guys next.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. That sounds like a good place to have a final rest.
So then she's trying to sell her house, and the realtor's like, look, your tiles are broken, your plumbing is messed up, your chickens, you got the chickens, so you need to fix all this, and then I can sell your house. But until you fix it, I can't do anything with this house. And then his kids show up. And the cops are like onto her. The cops are like, we know she did it. It's just at this point, it's just a question of when we go and get her, not if. I
think this is where they introduced my favorite character in the movie. A woman who just randomly explodes onto the scene, and she's a pessimist with the detectives. That's basically she doesn't believe.
Was she the captain?
There wasn't enough time to decipher who she was.
It looked like they were in an office somewhere, but I thought that was supposed to be the police station. And she's telling them that they're not going to go forward unless she was a prosecutor. Maybe she's a prosecutor.
Man, she was like Marlon Brando in A Dry White Season. She just went in, did her part,
and then got out.
Gets out.
Which was stupid on her end because it's like they have the van on tape. So it literally was just a question of when. You know, they knew she was lying. And
they were.
They probably could have cut the scene.
So this next part is a part I think they dropped the ball because they could have shown more scheming and, they just kind of brushed over it because we find out her brother ends up dying.
I see dead people.
And so they go to the lawyer or to the judge, they go to court, and it turns out that there were two wills. The one will that the wife had, and then another will that I guess Cybill just kind of whipped up.
Yeah, I didn't understand this. How was there a will made 2 days before?
She's a dumb criminal. She was dumb. And so not only was the will made up 2 days before, like the will left no money to the wife. The will made Cybill the executor, and the judge is like rolling his eyes like, you got to be kidding me. Come on.
Oh, I just
well, it's like that guy. There was some guy in the news this week that was suspected of killing his wife and had Googled how to dispose of a body.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Where did he dispose of it?
I don't know, but they've arrested him.
That's what. Yeah, it's like like clear your history, people. So Cybill like did not. Oh, and then even the judge like threw shade at her. The judge was like, he's like, the will wasn't even written well.
She's like, well, I did my best.
And so then we find out that the brother was cremated, and she forbade the the mortuary from giving his ashes to his wife. And so the mortuary is calling her, going, "Hey, we've got your brother's ashes here. What do we do with them?" So
I saw a preview. Did you guys see this preview of this other movie, Lifetime? It happens about right here. It's called Hoax, the kidnapping of Sherry, something else.
yes,
This woman gets branded on the ass.
Is this the one with Jennifer Grey?
Branding, like she's bent over. And I didn't make this up. She's like bent over, and she's like, "Yes, give me the branding now." And they brand her on the ass.
and it was a hoax, and she got a brand.
No, the movie's called Hoax. I don't know.
I think there's a fake kidnapping or something. They kept advertising it when watching this, so it's part of a series. There's something like four.
Well, I'm tuning in for that episode.
From the headline movie, so.
Okay, I didn't mean to interrupt, but that was the commercial that aired about that time.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
That made an impact on me.
So then she just gets brazen at this point. She's still sleepy, but she goes to the cops, and she's like, she blames her sister-in-law for the murder, and then she's like, "Listen, I need a letter saying that I didn't do it."
Yeah, she has a whole ridiculous story. She kind of puts it all together. She says, what was it? It was so convoluted.
Yeah,
She says like a mafia, she says a Vietnam
army or something. A gangster in the Vietnamese army.
See, now that was racist.
That's bad.
That's what I was.
The Vietnamese mafia came to and killed the husband. It was going to kill her, but she said, but then you detectives started sniffing around, and that's who did it.
And it was because of her sister. She was because of her sister-in-law that the Vietnamese mafia was after her.
Yeah, that's the scene where I should have been looking for the racism, not the.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then she asked them for a letter of recommendation.
And I love the cops.
I'm not a suspect, right? Yeah. Yeah. Proof that I'm not a suspect so I can get my insurance money. Yeah.
I did love the cops because they were just looking at her like, "You've got to be fucking kidding me."
They were pretty good.
It's true. She did this apparently, but it was only the time sequence is different than reality. I think it was only a couple days after her husband died that she went and asked the police for this. The real story. Again, according to this award-winning documentary that I watched afterwards.
So then this next part, I'm sure these dicky people were salivating at this I'm sure they were just eating it up.
They're the true winners of this film. Really, they are.
Because she's at a dinner party with them.
Certainly wasn't us.
She's having the dinner party, right? I think she was having it. Yeah. And so they're at a dinner party at her house. They're talking about their next little outing that they're going to go to. They're sitting around the table, and then the cops show up and arrest her at the table.
Why are they going in her backyard to arrest her? I didn't know that. Understand that.
Oh, I think that that's where she was. So,
They wanted to sneak up.
Yeah, I guess so.
But yeah, the Dickie friends were just like, I'm sure they were just like, "Oh my God, can you believe this?"
Yeah.
Well, joke's on them. They have to clean up now.
Right.
There was one friend who wasn't there. Like she was homesick, and they're like they even take pleasure in that. They call the sick friend and said, "Oh, you missed out on this one."
Yeah. And then the sick friend's really mad.
That's what happened. Yes, God damn it.
I come to that fucking writers group every week, and the one time I don't go, Nancy gets arrested. What the hell?
Right, the sick friend is pissed.
Better than the sickless dinner in Vegas. We topped that.
And then who was it that said it all comes down to plotting? And that was her problem in her writing too. She never knew how to plot well, and it showed in her crimes. Yeah. And so the cops are like, "Listen, dummy, don't buy your gun stuff on eBay, and don't have a blog that says how to murder your husband."
Everyone knows that if you are going to fashion your own gun, you buy parts on Etsy.
Right?
That's right.
Handcrafted.
So, to defend it, I I had recently reviewed How to Murder Your Wife, the Jack Lemmon movie from the 1960s. And in that one, he was a cartoonist who showed how he would murder his wife, and then he gets accused of murder that way. So maybe she was a fan of that movie and thought this was a good way to do things.
Oh,
so,
maybe.
So it would be the first time that somebody did something that stupid.
So at the end, she's in prison in her orange jumpsuit, and her wig was very big, and so Steve had a thing for mushrooms all throughout the movie, and he was always talking about mushrooms. And so he said that all mushrooms were edible. So
What? No. She reminisced about a convo with him about some poison mushroom.
Mm-hmm.
And then she sees it there at the prison, in the prison yard, because everyone knows mushrooms just magically grow at the prison. And she tries to eat it, and the guard tackles her and says, "No easy way out, Brophy."
Right. And that was that.
It was a very touching end to the movie because it was a very sweet conversation about mushrooms that they were having.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually missed her husband.
She missed her husband. Yeah.
And that was that.
Yeah.
And now she's in jail for life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in 25 years, she's eligible for parole.
She'll be 90-something. She'll be 90-something.
The 90s. Well, I think I like this movie more than you guys. Like I said, there's something about the financial aspect that kept my interest. And the consistent performance of Cybill Shepherd, of her, sleepiness.
She was sleepy.
It served as a through line for me.
I like how weird it is. It's like it's almost so bad it's good, but it's not quite there.
It was weird. And some of the ways it's like the scenes were shot were weird. Like there's a scene where they have the argument. It's bizarre. It would cut from just Steve Guttenberg like yelling, and there was like some awkward two shot of them. Just she's standing there looking weird, and
I still contend that the choices in this movie, of the way it was directed, were deliberately bad to be as if they were written from Nancy's, like as if Nancy wrote the movie.
Okay.
I like that reading of it. I mean, yeah, that they give some things a little bit of an out, I guess.
Yeah, and it's so bonkers that if you go and watch it through that lens, you're like, okay, well that kind of makes sense now that they did this.
And I just think that she was just she was a dumb criminal. Like, I think she's one of the dumbest criminals we've spoken about on this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I kind of liked her brazenness. Like she would just power through, and she doesn't care. No one likes her writing.
She had confidence. I mean, give her that. Yeah, admire that for sure.
And I just hope that Steve Guttenberg gets the makeover that he needs.
Mm-hmm. I hope he gets more work.
And that's it.
I really do think he put some energy into this. I don't know how Cybill Shepherd felt about doing this project, but he seemed like he was game for it. And
he showed up. He showed up for work, and he was like, he definitely gave it his all. Yeah.
He was. His scenes, I would that's what kept me watching. So
I remember Cybill didn't like. She doesn't want to work that much. Like even when she was doing Moonlighting, she didn't like the fact that they're working so many hours. And when they gave her the script for that episode that was in iambic pentameter, remember the Taming of the Shrew? I think they did. And she just said, she looked at the script. She said, "Why?" Because she knew it was going to be a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm surprised she did Broadway, because that's a ton of work.
Right.
Yeah.
But I guess
maybe sometimes she does. I guess she could get pissed because I've worked on TV shows that they end up shooting, like all kinds of hours, and I could see that.
And also on that show, it was really a two-hander. It was her and Bruce Willis in almost every scene, and that seems like the kind of show where they were probably getting the scripts at the very last minute, so she probably didn't have a lot of time to like learn her lines, and it's very dialogue heavy too.
And when all else failed, she'd go fine, and he'd go fine, and she'd go good. He'd go good.
And they say, we're looking for a man with a mole in his nose. A mole in his nose? A mole in his nose. What kind of clothes? What kind of clothes do you suppose? What kind of clothes do I suppose will be worn by a man with a mole in his nose? Who knows? Did I happen to mention? Did I fail to disclose? Did I fail to disclose the man that we're seeking with a mole in his nose? We're not sure of his clothes or anything else except he's Chinese. A big clue by itself. And the guy says, I'm sorry to say, I'm sad to report, I haven't seen anyone at all of that sort. Not a man who's Chinese with a mole in his nose or some sort of clothes that you could disclose. So get away from the store and get out of this place, or I'll have to hurt you. Put my foot in your face.
Oh, violent.
Moonlight.
Did you know that by heart, or were you reading that just now?
I knew it by heart.
Wow.
I knew it by heart.
This is your.
That was on.
That's your Nicki Minaj moment of the episode. Right there.
Because I memorized that when I was in high school. It was like this moonlighting episode played in high school. For some reason, I learned that. Just not for any public thing. I just learned it, and I still remember it.
For fun. It's
a dialogue. It was Bruce Willis, Cybill Shepherd, and this guest star actor.
Kurt, when you start your TikTok channel, that needs to be your first video.
Yeah,
I gotta make a TikTok video. Now I've got something to do. I mean, on TikTok, I've got things to do.
There you go. And you know, before we end, maybe Steve can join the Wrong universe or the Psycho universe.
I would love him to join the Wrong universe.
Yeah.
See, there's a place for him. Remember, he did the bedroom window. It was kind of like an '80s knockoff of Rear Window.
I do not remember that. No.
Remember that one?
No.
But yeah, he could join. He could join.
You guys remember that? Okay.
I could see him in a scene with our friend Meredith Thomas and Steve Guttenberg in a scene.
Yeah.
Anywho, if you want to find me, you can find me at my website, leskirkendallbarrett.com, or you can find me on Instagram at Kirkendall. Jason.
Please rate and review us wherever you listen to your podcast. Give us 5 stars so more people can find us. You can find us all on Instagram and Facebook at Lifetime of Hallmark Podcast. And you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Big Shot Jason. Kurt.
Oh, I just realized I'm kurtfitzpatrick.com, but I'm like Cybill Shepherd. I don't want to work because I have to update the site. Come on. So I have to update the site, but I'm going to be at the Rogue Festival in the beginning of March for 3 days in a row, doing my show, the Jester of All Maladies. Tickets are only $8. For crying out loud, I could afford that.
People need to see you perform live because it really is. I've been a fan for years, so you know.
Oh, that's sweet.
I always will support
that
stuff there, and so I'm glad that you're getting to a few festivals with that show.
I appreciate that.
And Jason, do you have anything you want to promote?
Yeah, just I guess the podcast, the Shelf Shedding Movie Show, it's called. I have it on Twitter at Shelf Movie and also on Instagram. And yeah, it's just a very, very independent podcast of one. And I just rely on some friends to come on and we just talk movies and it's fun for me. And so, and open invitation to any of you if you'd like to be on the show sometime. I've really enjoyed talking to you today, and thank you for letting me be part of your show. And again, I think it's just such a cool idea for a podcast. So, and I know anybody who listens to it will love it, and I promote it at the end of every one of my episodes. There, just
thank you,
thank you so much.
More people listening there. So, thank you so much. I appreciate it, and yeah, I enjoyed the experience and talking to you. Probably more entertaining than the movie for sure, but it was a lot of fun.
Always the goal.
Good laughs too.
So. Well, we got an upcoming episode. I'm going to come on the Shelf Shedding movie podcast like I did last year because we're going to do if we pick the Oscars, because I was always a fan of the Siskel and Ebert growing up, and they would do an episode every year of we pick the Oscars. So now we're taking over for Siskel and Ebert.
We are, yeah. I call it if we shed the nominees. And so then we try to put our points together. I think we reveal who we would vote for if we had a vote, as Siskel and Ebert used to. And then we try to get the 5 nominees down to 3, and whatever it is, the 6 to 10 Best Picture nominees down to 5, as I've always thought it should just be 5, like what I grew up with. But
is there any movie or performance that you are very hopeful will at least be nominated this year?
Movie-wise, I think my 2 favorites are 2 of the 3 favorite films this year, so I don't think I need to promote The Fabelmans or The Banshees of Inisherin for sure. I mean, I think they're doing fine there. But yeah, I mentioned the one performance earlier with Causeway. There's this. I guess one of the ones that's an odd one is Mia Goth. I don't think she stands a chance in this horror movie called Pearl. Ty West did 2 horror movies this year that were connected together, X and then Pearl, and just as a fantastic, like, one take, 6-minute long monologue at the end. I just thought it was one of the best performances of the year. It really has no chance, but it would just be nice to see, like, somebody kind of come out of left field to, as often happens. The last few years, there've been some surprising nominees. Yeah. So
was The Quiet Girl or The Quiet Girl nominated for anything?
The Quiet Girl?
The Quiet Girl.
Mm-hmm. It was a small little it was an Irish film. There's actually
I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
Well, the Oscar nominations haven't been announced yet. That's next week. That's going to be announced.
Yeah, I should look at the Independent Spirit nominees, because that's maybe where I'd see that. But yeah.
Is that still happening? Independent Spirit? I guess they are. Years ago, I used to vote on that a long time ago.
Really?
How'd you get part of that?
Because I was a member of what was called because I was years ago I was more involved in filmmaking, like independent film, like the late 90s, mid to late 90s. So I was part of the Independent Feature Project, it was called. And they used to have screenings and stuff like that. I don't know if that still exists, or maybe it exists in a different form. But we used to vote. Members of the IFP, the Independent Feature Project, we would vote for the Spirit Awards. I think that's correct. Or they were. I think those the award. That sounds right. Yeah.
Still happens. I don't hear as much about it as it used to be. Kind of the day before the Oscars, it was a big. It was a deal back in like the Tarantino, Pulp Fiction, the 90s independent movie wave that happened there. So
yeah, they used to have screenings. You would have screenings we would actually go out to instead of they wouldn't actually mail stuff out like they do in SAG.
No Cable Ace Awards.
Right.
Yeah, there was a previous episode where I thought the Cable Ace Awards still existed. I think, is that what happened?
And the American Comedy Awards have gone by the wayside. Yeah.
Oh boy, that was something.
Yeah.
Anyways, Jason, you are welcome back anytime. Yeah. Seriously.
Thank you so much. I've had a lot of fun with this.
Come back. Thank
you for enduring this movie.
And please.
It wasn't bad. It was a fascinating movie. So thank you so much for having me on.
And please make Kurt watch The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants Part 2. Please.
Maybe if I do that, maybe maybe you could all come on.
Yeah.
We could all talk.
Theater. We
could all sit to that.
Theater.
Yeah.
I gotta watch Avatar. don't really have much interest.
The second one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I ripped that Band-Aid off early though to get ready because
I just don't. I know it's like the most successful movie. I don't want to see it. It's gonna take all day. It's like
I could be wrong. You might be spared because
it might not be nominated.
You might not
Except
get
for a SAG award though.
Director because Cameron wasn't on the list for the Directors Guild Awards, and I don't know if it was up for the producers, but I think it's starting to waver. They'll be up for tech categories.
It's up for a SAG award though, so
Yeah.
I have access to it. We'll see.
And anyway, one more thing before we go. I'm also going to be at the Rogue Festival with my show, The Real Black Swan, Confessions of America's First Black Drag Queen. I will be there for 2 weekends, though. So please go and see it.
Aren't you something?
And I know, right?
You and that podcast in 2 weekends?
My 2 weeks and my 2 weekends and my highfalutin podcast.
Yeah. More people to yell at you.
Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, I guess that's it. So bye.
Bye.
Jason, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.